What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Dave B. You watching Beyond Astrology, where we go beyond all things, of course, related to astrology, but we also dive deep into spirituality, psychology, all different types of things that can help us understand more about ourselves so that we can have more true, authentic, genuine expressions of ourselves, put that into the world, and that's how we make the world a better place. Now, I'm coming to y'all with a quick astrology breakdown. Matter of fact, I might just turn this into the new moon and Capricorn video. We have a new moon in Capricorn coming up on our Saturday, Sunday, I believe Sunday. I don't even, it's Wednesday now. So on Sunday though, I think that's like the 18th if I'm not mistaken, right? Because Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. So the 18th, right? So but right here today, matter of fact, I'm finna pull up the chart, the so we can look at the transits. There's an interesting dynamic going on that I realized. Like we have a tremendous amount of energy in Capricorn, which is, to be honest with you, is creating this weird dynamic. Simply because at this very moment we got this stellium in Capricorn. See, you got all the, not only is there four planets in Capricorn, but then you also have all of it in the same kind of degree cluster in its opposite, Jupiter in Cancer, right? So there is, Jupiter represents expansion and wisdom, learning. There's almost like it's something outside of our perspective that we have to broaden our awareness of, but on an emotional level, because it's in Cancer. So there's an emotional, it's like whether it's something within yourself that you have to come to realization with, like, man, I didn't know such and such was that deep to me, or I didn't know this thing affected me so much. It could be, it most likely is something from the past. It could be childhood stuff. It could be just anything that happened to you that developed an emotional shell to protect yourself. I seen something very interesting about crabs being, the shape and form of a crab is actually one of the, it's a doing of evolution. It's not actually, that was something animals evolved into, and it's actually considered one of the most, like one of the most powerful kind of like formations of like anatomy as well, like anatomy. I know I'm tripping over my words, but that was something I seen real quick on the internet. But I was reading into it, and it's like the shape, the form of a crab is kind of like it's considered superior scientifically, just based upon evolution and things like that. How that creature, crustaceans, were developed, like lobsters as well. Those things didn't exist. They're a product of evolution and things like that. Just random facts, but it's interesting because I brought that up just talking about Cancer energy. Y'all know the crab, but Cancer being emotional. But I guess I said that for the reason of that learning that a cancer shell, a crab's or crustacean shell in the formation of so they create the shell, but then their back is longer than their front. It's almost like just learning that that's a product of evolution, because it kind of makes me think of how with this Cancer energy, um cancer a lot of times are related to your childhood wounds, emotional, insecurities, emotional trauma and things like that, and private connections, right? So, they'll say like in the home, but private, anything that feels like home or is supposed to represent home. And home could mean, safety, security, and things like that. When you think of childhood, you are entirely dependent on your parent for not only care but survival. So that level of vulnerability is extreme. And so later on in life, it's funny because everything reflects that kind of raw truth of just human connection, and the human experience is that we're always vulnerable. We're always, your feelings are always kind of subject to be, at any given moment, man, you can be emotionally torn apart. Something happen to someone that you care about, something could happen to you. So, you could lose something. Somebody could, you could learn about something that you didn't know about somebody that triggers an emotional response. It's like our whole lives, we go from, first of all, being dependent on our parents for that love and care, but then, you know, the harsh reality, not to be morbid, but there will come a time in which your parents will no longer be here. Or some people very young lose parents. Some people, you lose people, you could lose, and it's not just about losing, but there's also situations where the person you're looking to protect you at that extreme vulnerable time as being a child, a baby, an infant, all the way up into a toddler. All these are vulnerable states of the human experience that you are entirely dependent. When you become a teenager and then you become an adult, it's like you feel like you can, well, I can defend myself, I can take care of myself. But if you really think about it, you still are dependent in ways like community. That's why community is so important. You know what I'm saying? It's like we are always you're dependent on people who know things that you don't know, and you're dependent on people who are better at things that you are not as good at. Only a fool would think that they could get to a point where they can know everything and be content in a bubble. Basically, no, you need at least, at the very least, one or two people that you can at least go back and forth with. You know it's just it's necessary, and again, you really, you start to see when you go out into the world how important it is to have good relations, to know who to call when certain things need to get done, to know who to reach out to when things are difficult, even if that's just to talk on the phone and tell somebody how you feel, to tell somebody about what you went through or what you saw. Friendship is important, and I feel like, especially early on, and when social media was really getting popular, it was almost like it went through a phase, right? The world went through a phase where everybody was cool, kind of just, I don't know, feeling like they don't need nobody. And like, the thing is, we always work to be self-sufficient, right? And that work is more about learning yourself and knowing your own needs, and then becoming an adult or mature is like becoming, taking on the responsibility and the authority over your life is like a process of maturity, and that's a matter of learning how to satisfy your own needs to the best, to your, to the best of your abilities. But there is always going to be spaces to be fulfilled through other connections. You know what I'm saying? People who see things that you don't see, even down to being in a relationship and things like that. That's why some people, always, you might mock somebody because it's like, oh, you always trying to be in a relationship. Now, of course, that is a issue if that's a chronic thing. If you're just jumping from connection to connection to connection, then that is alarming. But for the most part, it's like, you know, I don't know, and some people kind of go through a thing where they are going through a moment in their life where it is about just being them, being themselves, and I think that has a place in everything. But my point is, even in that, even in being just by yourself, like, without a romantic partnership, you still need friendship. You still need somebody, even if you got two or three people you call that you don't necessarily feel close to, but they're still the people you call for, that little bit of human connection that everybody needs. Even if you're a person who only gets deep with one person at a time, it's still somebody there. You still, in some way, playing out a form of community, even if it's just one on one, you know what I'm saying? But not to get too far off focus. But so Jupiter opposite. Matter of fact, let's dive into this chart so y'all can see what I'm talking about. That's a good visualizer. Um, Hold on. So, we got the sun. Y'all can see right here, we got the sun, we got Venus, we got Mars, and we got Mercury, right? All of these are concentrated right here in the 20s, in the 20-degree range, right? In the third decan of Capricorn, which, if we follow the third decan, that is Virgo. So think about this Capricorn energy as almost like, now that we're at the end, or we're, well, in the middle of January, the kind of high of the holiday season has worn off. People are kind of getting back into motion, but there's a little bit of a hesitation because people are stuck in situations where they're coming to the realization of how unaligned they've been, and it can be jarring, it could be paralyzing, right? Don't get too hung up on that. The key of this whole, next phase we going through, especially like when people talk about all the next 9 years, and You don't have to look so far ahead, but understand that the underlying theme is about self-trust. It's about self-belief, believing yourself first, and then also understanding your emotional. Well, this is kind of just a on top a lesson I think comes with more so Jupiter in Cancer. Learn more about your emotional responses to things in the root of them. Please, like, learn more about the root causes of some of these emotional responses to the experiences that you go through. There's a lot of hidden lessons in there that are just for you. They're not necessarily things for you to take and to give out to others. These are private truths, private wisdom that's supposed to come through from you engaging with the world in a way in which you allow your emotional intelligence or your emotional awareness to expand in things like that. Like, as your emotional awareness expands, and when I say emotional awareness, I mean learning why you respond to things the way you do, the meaning and reasoning behind some of your emotional reactions, some of your emotional responses. Where are the first places that your mind goes to or that your emotions like flow towards the second certain things happen? How often do you feel the emotions you want to feel? All of these different things play a very important factor in just, expanding or just being, where is my emotional aware? Like, you being emotionally aware, but then there's also emotional capacity, learning your own emotional capacity and trying to expand that a little bit to make more room for things that probably should be there. If you want deeper connections, you're going to have to expand your emotional capacity for discomfort. I'm not saying be in unhappy connections and stuff like that, but I'm saying you have to get out of that, kind of immature mind state to think that everything is supposed to feel good all the time. Sometimes things don't feel good, but you can still understand like kind of the reasoning behind, because it's almost like sometimes, right, people complain about this in today's time where the second someone is emotionally upset, all of a sudden they want to completely detach, they want to ghost, they want to completely break off all connections and stuff like that. And it's like you don't understand that the whole point of relationships is to grow together. In order to grow, there will be moments of disconnect and rupture, right? But it's also about the willingness to repair, the willingness to actually want to sit there and work on something and develop it. Now, again, I'm speaking as an example or as as an example through a romantic partnership, but this is even down to people with things that they want to achieve in life, bruh. You keep putting down that one that you're trying to learn a new skill. You keep putting it down and you're not committed enough to care about the work involved in getting better at this thing. You're going to have to nurture it. Like part of it, well, in that aspect, it's about pouring into it, right? But then also nurturing yourself through it. Sometimes you have to learn how to, I don't want to use the phrase self-soothe, but sometimes you have to understand where, again, it's a fault in your capacity. And, you at that point, you decide, okay, is this so beyond my capacity that I no longer have I don't want to deal with that, right? And so let's just throw it away and start something new. Or is it something where you say, yeah, that's beyond my capacity, but you know what? I actually care about this particular thing due to how aligned I feel with it to continue pursuing it. That's like when you get frustrated making a song, but you put the song down for a second, right? You might react to it, right? But you put the song down for a second, but it's almost like the second you put it down, maybe a few hours pass, or maybe even longer. You just got to pick it back up and get right back into it. That's kind of how like same thing. Sometimes that happens with a relationship. It's like a complication, but then it's like, man, I still really do want to be in this partnership, or I do want to be in this connection, and so you work on it. I think this energy in particular being opposed, this because see, it's not just Jupiter in Cancer, but it's opposing Venus, Mars, and Mercury. So this makes this day in particular, because I'm recording this on a Wednesday, it makes this day in particular just kind of like a little rough. Communication can be real rough. Kind of not knowing how to feel about certain circumstances, depending on what house you have these planets in, that affects things too. Like, if you have it in Capricorn in the first, this is going to be playing out right in actual relationships. If you have this, in the second, this is you're learning emotional intelligence or emotional, yeah, you're like yeah, learning how to expand your emotional capacity when it comes to things that are beneath the surface, deeper things. You know what I'm saying? If it's going in the you got Capricorn in the third, ninth house. So you're learning on what kind of experiences you want to have that can help you kind of with your emotional capacity, so on and so forth. I don't have I'm not gonna go through all those right now. Yeah, I'm not gonna go through all those right now, but you can't hit me up for a reading. You know what I'm saying? We could break all this down. We could talk about transits. I like to do transits for a full moon cycle. So we about to come up on a new moon. Go ahead and get one for this new moon all the way up until next new moon. You can email me at davebeyond95@gmail.com. With astrology help in the subject line, and then we can hook that up for you so you know exactly what is going on during this transit, because I didn't even get to the new moon yet, but this is all prep for the new moon. That's why I was like, I might as well get to the new moon in this video, because it's like it's everything in astrology's progression. Just like how spring fades into summer, summer fades into fall, fall fades into winter, and it comes right back around. So, you start to understand, the more you study this type of stuff, you start to understand these cycles, and get familiar with how one thing turns into the next thing, right? And the better you can get into that, the more intentional you could be with your day, your time, every second, every minute, every moment. You know what I'm saying? You can get better, and then that allows you to kind of manifest more precise. Yeah, I don't like to say that, but yeah, like this is really stuff that we all have access to. This is power that we naturally have, but through different things over time in society, and things that have kind of put obstructions on the natural flow of energy. We all over the place, and we don't have access to our power the same way we used to, right? Or the same way you might have in a different reality. But anyway, not to get too, you know, sci-fi and shit like that, Yeah. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. So the stellium, right? Venus. So you're learning a lot about love, expanding your emotional capacity for love. Venus is in Capricorn, so it's kind of looking for the tangible things. It's trying to make sense out of it. It's trying to make a plan, a business plan about it. Not to say that things are reduced to just business, but it wants you to take it serious. Take what you are interested in, take the things you like, take it seriously. If you getting support, take that seriously. You know or take yourself serious enough to invest in the things that you want, to go after the things you want. This is a very pivotal moment too in the year, because like I was just saying about how over time in society certain things throw us off our balance. Same thing like with the whole New Year's thing, where the real New Year's not till March. So right now we're still in this weird limbo, right? That majority of the world thinks, oh, this is the beginning of something. And this is not that at all. It's the resolving of a story that we no longer are participating in the, I guess, the commitment to a new timeline, to a new story, to a new narrative, right? And so we have to initiate that here by, actively choosing what it is the path we're about to go down. And that kind of comes through even in the new moon, especially in the new moon in Capricorn. It's very late degrees Capricorn. We're gonna fade. We're gonna skip ahead and go to that chart. But before we do that, another thing I want to discuss too is what makes a lot of this energy even more intense, right? So we still got like this Pisces energy, right? Neptune right here on the cusp going into Aries. That's why I say the crux of everything we're experiencing right now is kind of the root of it is how much you really believe yourself. And when you have that self-belief in what you're going through and you're going through, it's going to make the whole point of the self-belief is not so much to know what's going to happen before it happens, or to be delusional and just like, la la la, I'm just going to go out into the fire. But it's about, when you believe in yourself, it's not so much about knowing what's going to happen or expecting anything. It's about trusting that you are making decisions that are in alignment and true to you. It's like trusting. Oh my gosh, how can I explain this? I'm trying to use words that I don't even know exist to explain something that is very, so it's like when you're believing in yourself, it's almost like a vibe of like, no matter what I choose, I'll get to where I'm going because if it's if I'm aligned with it, it's almost like man, if you it's almost like it becomes a part of you, right? In the same sense of don't chase a track. You got to be it to see it. If you be it, if you embody it, it doesn't matter what choice you make because every choice you make, you're making it in the embodiment of the thing that you are quote unquote manifesting. And this is how you kind of play with time, like how people say time isn't real. This is how you play with time because it's like you're imagining yourself in a future state, but you're embodying it in the present. So it's like you speed things up, you can slow things down by doing the opposite, putting the pressure on something being outside of you that you have to work your way to or achieve. And this is how people kind of create, you know, delayed manifestations and stuff like that, or end up manifesting things that they don't even want. Because instead of just embodying the thing that you wanted, you told yourself you had to do this and that and this and this first before you could even do anything involved in that. And you created your own obstacle course. And then you wonder why life is confusing, why life is hard, why it feel like you go this way and go that way. And see, we do sometimes that happens to us naturally just based upon us going through, there's something we had to see on the scenic route. Sometimes we this is part of learning yourself. This is the part of the process of life. But that's not even what I was trying to get at. Actually, I was trying to talk about Chiron. And shout out to I forgot your name. Y'all, you left a comment. He was like, "Do you get to that? Do you talk about the asteroids?" Even though Chiron, I don't actually think is Chiron an asteroid? It might be, but I do talk about the asteroids like Pallas, Ceres, or Ceres, however you say it. I don't think it's Ceres, but I even talk about uh, said Pallas. I talk about I discuss those too. Even Lilith. The thing about it is, a lot of time in those readings, I might skip over it. But I will point out that this Chiron in Aries is playing an important role. Chiron went direct not too long ago, but it's also at this 22 degrees. See, one thing that stuck out to me when I was looking at the charts is like, man, everything is about in 20 degrees. Everything is around 20 degrees, even Uranus. And it's like, damn, like that's crazy. That's a lot of energy. Not only that, but so when the new moon happens, this whole stellium, the moon is going to be first, but they're going through this Pluto checkpoint. Pluto checkpoint, that's like, again, it's ushering in the transformation. So a lot of the things you might be learning right now about deep emotional, again, you could stumble upon something being kind of deeper than what you thought it was. And it's not even so much that it's deep like like that, like to where it's hidden, but it's something that if you were to say you're looking at a big picture, but if you were to step up to that picture, you would see the small intricate details. That's almost like the effect that's happening with Jupiter opposite all this Capricorn energy. Because the Capricorn energy is 180 degrees away from the emotional expansion. So the emotional expansion is almost like what you think your emotional body is, what you think your feelings are, what you think your feelings are contained of, or your we I feel like we all have, just like we have a way of seeing ourselves on an ego tip, I think we have a way of how we feel we should be perceived, which is almost like the emotional aspect. Like that's why when someone treats you a certain way, your feelings are hurt because you're like, "Well, how could you treat me this way?" It's almost like we have a way of understanding how we should be perceived, and when that's not achieved we feel emotionally damaged. So but this is taking that space and basically it's already expanded, but the opposition is like us kind of getting up and seeing like some of the more intricate details of it, because not only is it Capricorn, but it's the third deacon of Capricorn, which is that Virgo. So it's like we're trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to structure this life? How is this structure composed? And why am I still hitting restrictions? Why am I still seeing boundaries? And so we have to investigate. That's the third deacon in Capricorn, investigate, see the details of it, and we're saying, oh, the details are actually like again, my emotional body is composed of this thing that happened between me and my mom at like the age 9, and I never quite like healed from that. And actually, that was a pattern that spans this whole section of this my the puzzle, this picture, you know what I'm saying, this portrait. It's like, damn, that actually is this whole color palette, like the reason for this whole color palette. Oh, that's the reason why this stroke is going up here and that stroke is going there. It's like, you know, how I'm explaining it. Y'all know I go too crazy with the analogy, but that's kind of like depending on what that's a form of what we're going through at the moment. You got Mercury opposite this. So even how if you're trying to communicate to make people feel you at the moment, it might not land, it might not resonate. You might not have the emotional language and dialogue to connect to somebody enough for them to hear what you're trying to say. You might not even be saying what you're trying to say because you're thinking about it too hard and stuff like that, right? So, your mental could be rigid at the moment. Mars is in Capricorn, so it's just passion, angry things can get heated fast. So you just want to be mindful that you don't get too heated on something that didn't require that. But my whole point with Chiron was this is creating a square off of that. So like a T square, I guess. So Chiron, they call it the wounded healer, right? It's in the shape of a key. So a lot of times understanding your Chiron placement and how it aligns with other planets in your chart gives you the key to kind of understand your own healing process and to kind of overcome certain things that if not checked over time will become deep-rooted insecurities and stuff like that. But this is also the key to help you free yourself from the prison that having an insecurity can create for you as far as your again ability to emotionally expand or resonate with the next person in the room or the next emotional body in the room, right? Some people you can't even like when people say, "Oh, I'm emotionally unavailable," or when somebody proclaims themselves to be an avoidant and stuff like that. Sometimes that's from them having a low capacity for emotional expansion. I'm not trying to expand too far out of myself because I might have went through certain traumas that require me to be very close to my heart and every now and then I might peek and like let something kind of come through, but then it's like it might be too much and it might not even be the fault of the other. It might just be just too much for you at the time. So it's not personal sometimes, but this is explaining that. Now, Chiron could be the key to unlocking some of that, right? There's other things in the chart that also kind of contribute to that, but Chiron is one of the pathways. Now, with Chiron though, in Aries collectively, we all are going through a very personal pain point that we're kind of figuring out ways that we can um become brave enough to face. Because like in Aries, it's more so about war. It's Martian. It's like about war. It's almost like we're fighting. We're having to be more brave. So even if you look out into the world, like a lot of things right now require you to have a certain level of I don't even want to say confidence, but true courage to step out because nobody knows what's going on. But the ones who are kind of getting the most out of the energy are finding out more things about themselves and their own capabilities are the ones with the courage to try. That's why the whole point and see all of this, the Chiron was even kind of like, especially when we had Saturn in Aries last year, we had Neptune in Aries kind of making their introduction. You know what I'm saying? That was almost like, again, reinforcing that same energy tone where it's like you have to believe in yourself, not because it's different than it was before. Now you have to believe in yourself because if you don't, you risk having to follow. It's like you risk kind of giving up on the things that you dream. You put yourself at the mercy of whoever is controlling things to provide you with something that is a pleasant experience. Which some people might work out for y'all, but if you don't take matters into your own hands, you could very well be SOL. You know what I'm saying? Shit out of luck. Where damn ain't no more opportunities left. How people I don't like how people fear monger with things like AI and technology and stuff. However, though it's like man you really can't ignore some of these things happening. the restrictions being enforced, but right under your nose, every single app damn near has some form of AI integrated into it, just collecting massive data. And it's like now, I don't know if y'all heard, but there was some a situation with there's a connection between data centers and them having to be connected to the government in some kind of way. With like through like Google Gemini, for instance, partnerships, all kinds of partnerships, all kinds of with these it's like when you think of tech companies, like these tech companies, tech is the people wrote stories about Big Brother and things like that. Tech is like the new police, like almost. Tech is the new government. Like it's weird, you know what I'm saying? It's weird, and all there's no such thing as privacy at a certain point because soon everything is going to be connected to something with Wi-Fi. You always gonna have Wi-Fi within 5 feet of you, five within 2 feet of you. They literally put the Wi-Fi in your pocket. Something's connected to a network that's shooting up to a satellite to show you what you're doing. Not only that, but something's listening. Now with AI integrated, there's something collecting massive information. Well, you used to laugh like, or not laugh, but be like, man, people listening through the computer, or people listening through the phone. Not only like before, if you think about a person listening, they might record you or they might write something down. But now, if you know what AI is, now AI like not only is it capturing what you're saying, but it's rapidly analyzing the information and either summarizing it, synthesizing it, or creating connections as to what the next thing would be logically with this type of dialogue flowing through the phone. Like, y'all kind of understand what I'm saying? Like how there was even a thing talking about how they're gonna start trying to I don't know if this is everywhere, but it was something being said about preemptive policing where they're trying to they based upon how you talking and what you saying and what you doing, they using AI or some form of artificial intelligence to predict, oh, this person will be a danger to society later. You know how crazy that is to put that in the hands of something that like it's crazy. It's crazy. Not to, again, I'm not on no fear monger shit because I think there's a solution. But the solution got to be honestly, we got to come together on some shit. Like but that's kind of a different. That's a kind of I need a different video for that. But we have to. This is why things like community. When I say community, when anybody say community, their mind goes to the internet cults we've seen since 2014 or 2012. You know what I'm saying? All the internet cults when you do it because it's been a business model. I honestly believe that's the problem. Community has been a business model for so long, and now community is no longer a bit like if you treating community like a business model to some degree, unless that's part of the strategy. And what I mean by that is you're trying to create an economy. So, that's a method. I don't want to get too deep, but you can create you can if you're creating an economy, that's one thing. But um if you're just treating community like a business model, you know, uh, and I say that more so for the people who participate in the business model, not so much for the people who putting together a business model. Because the people putting together the business model for whatever community they're building, that's like, and the thing is, this happened. I'm not even talking about it. Like I'm not even talking shit about it because like everybody is trying to figure out a way. How do I generate income doing maybe what I love or maybe just running the business? How can I do that so that I can leave my job and create financial freedom? Y'all know the spiel. And it's like, okay, like you can't fault somebody for that. That's like, what I'm saying? That's just somebody playing the game. In the game being, hey, we all have a rent to pay. You know what I'm saying? We all trying to make sure we got our responsibilities taken care of. Like I said before, people got things they want to do in life, and so they're trying to make more money to create more time. So like you could talk shit about that, you could be negative about that, but I understand it, right? Well, like how people talk about capitalism, right? I understand both sides, the people who are against it, but also the people who use it as a system to say, hey, we here, let's play the game. I get it. If you're an entrepreneur, unfortunately, on some form, you believe in capitalism. You know what I'm saying? That's and let me not say believe in because you can understand it, but not necessarily believe in. Believe in more so you ingrained it into your being. You started to, you in some form you believe in it like a religion almost. Like you know what I'm saying. So you do things by the dollar. You die by the dollar. You all about a dollar. You know what I'm saying? Type people, and you can tell those type of people a person too rooted into anything like the person that's how people get lost into different things. It's almost like it's not the same person no more. You ever met somebody who just whatever they're doing at the time, it's like back then when people used to be on that what was that thing, was it forex? Yeah, it was when people used to be on forex, and it was like it's like the way they're trying to sell you the membership to join. It was like, bro, I knew you. Like, I know you. Like, why are you talking to me like this? Like, you know what I'm saying? NPC mode. Very strange. But it's like that. You could, like, when you really get that spiritual sense about you, you could spot that in anybody on any type of time. Like, but, you know, so I say all that to say, community as a business model, for the people participating in things online, participating like, again, a person who really on my channel, I'm assuming like a person who is somewhat compassionate and maybe, on your purpose and on your path, you trying to do something for the world. So you trying to find individuals who think like you, who you can align yourself with, right? And you could do some good in the world, right? That could be your intention, but some of these communities as business models can get you caught up, you know what I'm saying? Now, again, understanding sometimes certain things might be beyond your understanding. I'm really talking about the scams and when the purpose behind the community ain't on nothing, But if it's a community that actually stands for something, and that's just rare, you know what I'm saying? A community that actually stands for something, and it's like it's something that you're aligned with as a movement or as something you would want to contribute energy into, okay, cool, you know, but I was saying all that to say, what we can do to create alternatives through community, like real community. Excuse me. When I say real community, I mean structured and like with a plan, and everybody is coming from a authentic place. Like that is what's actually gonna make a difference because it'll create these pockets, especially if you could do something like creating a flowing economy, or do different forms of exchange, like different forms of exchange and exchanging goods, exchanging currency or whatever it is. But that's something that's like that take time, that take a tremendous amount of intention, a tremendous amount of effort and things like that. But it's worth again, like I say all that because like we're in the age of Aquarius and we got Pluto early in Aquarius. So it's like what the shit that I'm talking about is stuff that I'm probably not even gonna see in my lifetime. However, I can contribute to something that will be built and left for my children's children and things, so on and so forth. So like I'm kind of getting like, and it's crazy because I'm talking about an outer planet energy and it's turning into a generational conversation. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to get too far away. So I'm gonna bring it back and shit. But that's kind of like, we talking about Pluto. The new moon is kind of like usher is gonna be is racing to the head of the pack. We're gonna have that new moon at the very tail end of Capricorn, and then boom, it's gonna go through the Pluto gate, and then through that gate is gonna be that new feeling towards networking, associating, even your individuality and your sense of self within a community, your sense of self within a group or amongst a system or organization, I should say, your individual self amongst which is within any space you're in amongst the public arena, right? So there's going to be a new way. It might be a new initiative that's kind of pulling you through. but it's going to be an emotional transformation. So, but you can use the information from this alignment, opposite Jupiter, to expand your emotional capacity to understand things kind of just beyond your bubble. And then I didn't even really get into this Chiron energy. This Chiron energy being, like I said before, the wounded healer. So learning more courage. See, it's late degrees. So like this lesson of Aries is more so rooted in wisdom. So now that you've kind of again, we've been through 22 degrees of Chiron and Aries. Chiron had been in Aries, I feel like for so long. I'm not even lying. I didn't know Chiron stayed in the sign that long, but for the most part, when it comes to Chiron, um, I get it's squaring this stellium. So there's a lot to learn from kind of more so the painful understanding of things. Like, and it's almost like a painful understanding. It's almost like you have to forgive yourself from things you just wasn't aware of, ways again, you couldn't have possibly protected yourself or prevented this experience from happening because you just didn't know. But it's healing from that, is learning how to kind of face that head on. And yeah, like get more, Aries is an energy where sometimes it can kind of be on the one track mind, and it could be kind of frustrated. So there might be some kind of frustration in things that you might not have known to do at earlier times in your life, or you know, just even kind of painful realizations that are very personal, and you having to kind of just, push through those things. Also, the courage to stand up and say, hey, this no longer aligns with me. This does. I'm going to commit to this, and like I was saying, even about commitment. Some people have purpose. They know what they want to do in life, but they have not committed to doing it. And by committing to doing it, I'm not saying you got to do it in the craziest way and you got to make it so extreme. I'm saying finding some kind of way, little by little, piece by piece, day by day, to spend a little bit, to invest a little bit of time and energy into that thing that they say they want to do. And again, that's a form of embodying. Yeah, you might not have a whole 5 hour, 9 hour, 8, 10 hour block to do just what you love to do. But you can start to create small representations of that in your reality by getting creative about what's available to you. But that takes courage and that takes commitment. These are things that I feel like are just kind of coming through with this square, and all before we get this moon, which is going to pass through all this and have the energy of the stellium. And then being Capricorn, Capricorn is the initiator of the earth energies, and is in, the emphasis being the third decan of Virgo, so Mercury type energy. So thinking through the next step and plan and action of order. Execution is a very big word for Capricorn. So it's like, how am I going to execute? And not even thinking so much about how, just, you know, committing and getting very focused on what it is you want to, what it is and stuff like that. But even that process might be painful. I was having a conversation the other night, and it's like, you don't realize how much shame you might carry for just wanting to do what you want to do. Some people grow up in situations where to be who they wanted to be, to do what they wanted to do, somebody around them, an adult figure or even an early any type of figure that was around, could have very well been the voice in the back of the head that created shame around you just being you just doing what you want to do. Now all of a sudden you're an adult and you looking over your shoulder, and you feel, you get those feelings like of, I can't really do what I want to do, or that it can get even extreme. Like you can feel like a piece of you was stripped away, because that, again, that's how deep some of them childhood things happen. And I say childhood, but childhood could also mean being 15 years old and you just not knowing how to protect yourself in certain ways, and then boom, or you being even early. We are always children, like low key, like, what I'm saying, that's always a part of us. It's not like, oh, I used to be a child. You are the same person, you're the same being. Just because some time went past, it doesn't make you different than your child form. It's just you might know how to regulate, you might know how to mask, you might know how to perform better the character you would like to be, but you are still, again, that emotional body. You still that vulnerable child. the world is wicked. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of you have to protect yourself, and you protect yourself by knowing yourself, by building up your intellect, by building up your emotional awareness and intelligence and capacity for understanding yourself and others. You protect yourself even if you want to take it to physically, taking care of your body, health, and things like that. Like, you know, these are the ways in which you protect yourself because and again, Cancer is like the moon. Cancer is a very important energy. It's right there with the sun. So like that thing about crustaceans and stuff, that's crazy. Like I think that's crazy because if you really think about it, a lot of times our whole life is protecting our heart. You know what I'm saying? Protecting your heart in some way. You know, not being closed-hearted, but I don't know. I thought that was an interesting fact that came through. But yeah, so this new moon, matter of fact, so I'm still gonna make a new moon video. The new moon video is gonna be going through just the phase from new moon to the full moon, talking about that journey, that phase. Yeah, just talking to myself. Had that idea. I was like, let me say that out loud so I remember. But yeah. Um, we also have other asteroids, and I'm talking about them because Homeboy was talking about it. So I was like, maybe people want to know about what these asteroids are doing. So I figured I might as well. So we got Juno. Juno represents longevity. So everything we're kind of blueprinting right now, longevity is kind of in the back of our mind. We know we're trying to plan for the next X amount of years, but sometimes that can bring anxiety. Sometimes you might not even be aware that that's necessarily what you're trying to do. Um, so just kind of keep, well, I won't say keep that in mind. Well, yeah, keep that in mind if it helps. But Juno is always thinking long term. It's again back to commitment. And the stellium, I think, is just it's a lot of energy in one area. So, you might be feeling certain pressures that honestly, don't shy away from the pressure. Kind of embrace it and appreciate it for what it is. Right now we got the moon in Capricorn, I mean in Sagittarius. So the moon in Sagittarius with the sun in Cap, it's like moon in Sagittarius might it's gonna kind of put you in like a space where you might just be kind of expansion, not to be cliche or generic. It's like, the moon being in Sagittarius is kind of like, I want to say a bit of like all over the place. You might be kind of all over the place. You might want to break free from just what it is you've been kind of too focused on at the moment. You're either on that side or you're on the side of being willing to be taught, being willing to be a student. You're either willing to be a student or you're kind of rebelling against the curriculum. That's kind of like what it feels like. Um, because it's always a matter of it's no necessarily good or bad, but there's high octave and then low octave. You depending on how you vibrating doesn't mean if you're rebelling against a curriculum that is negative. Because rebelling against a curriculum that could be necessary for your growth, necessary for you to go to the place that you actually supposed to go before the moon gets into Capricorn, and then it's about getting more focused. It's about getting more disciplined in that space of, okay, this is my responsibility. This is what I'm going to do, right? You want to get clear on what you want to expand in beforehand, before it gets there. Yeah. But that's the main thing. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what's going on right now in this current snapshot. We'll come back and do the new moon and discuss kind of the energy concentrated here, and then uh going all the way to the full moon. And then I might bring it all the way back. I might do the full cycle or I might just do half. It depends. But anyway, yeah, hope this was helpful. Like I said before, if you would like a reading, you can email me at daybeyond95@gmail.com. What else? Yeah, astrology help in the subject line. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? If you rock with the video, go ahead and drop me a like. If you're new here, subscribe if you like this type of content and want more and more and more and more, because that's what I'm looking to do with this channel. And yeah, drop a comment if you got something to share. All right, much love, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Peace.